Okay. So just because I don't like to, live in ignorance and I like things to be clarified and rectified and, clear the air. And I understand that God's gone ahead of me and fought battles and, He's moving and I get all of that. But I still got to do my part. Now, I'm for one that I don't typically think that the Bible has anything to do with logic. I think that what I once heard is that you had the peoples that was intellectuals of the Bible, and because they were intellectuals, they had a hard time grasping faith and the miracle aspects of the Bible. I'm not proclaiming to be anything that I'm not. I know what God has asked me to do. I know what I have been identified as. I know that I have a calling on my life. I've had a calling on my life a long time. I've attempted to answer this call many times, many different ways, many attempts. And sometimes I be trying to call my son and ask him why. Other than going to Bible college and being taught under the tutelages of apostles and prophets and preachers and teachers, and besides going to church, how else would you answer the call of God on your life if you have one? You could be born with gifts, all of that. But how do you actually answer the call? I know I'm being called. I have even reached out to my very first prophetic teacher and asked him, how exactly do you answer the call of God on your life? Like, if you have went to church and you didn't been through Bible ministry and they didn't recognize you, told you who you were, and you didn't study the Bible and showed yourself approved, and you don't know everything, you may just be beginning your walk, whatever. Some people are a little bit more thorough. Everybody's not called to the same level of ministry. Everybody's not called to do the same things. Everybody don't have the same gifts. Everybody don't have the same assignments. And there have been at least 3 or 4 times in my life where I have entered prophetic training class and I was doing everything they asked me to do when I was studying and answer questions, and bam, I was thrown in the hospital. And I kind of was like really baffled, like, God, why is it that every time I go to try to do what the church, they have protocol. This is the protocol that you go through to get into ministry and answer the call and get licenses and all of that. I've attempted many times, and every time it was the same result, and it was the same group of family members that did it. So I'm like, okay. So one day I go to the hospital and I went to the hospital and there was somebody sitting in the waiting room, and I was going up there because my blood pressure was high that day. And I'm sitting in the waiting room and there was someone in the waiting room, and I'm sort of just started to converse with them and just chit chat. And then, it was a moment of ministry. I gave them a word and then I went on about my way. They called me back on the table, and then I'm sitting there, and then the nurse in the hospital starts giving me a word. So it was kind of just like this beautiful cycle that happened. It was not a situation I had created. It was not a situation I had put myself in. I was simply just told, well, go to the hospital. We need to check your, we need to check we need to give you a echo and a cardiogram and they're doing all these tests to see, am I on the verge of having a heart attack? Am I on the verge of having a stroke? Do I have any brain damage? What's the condition of my heart? So I go through these tests. I get an x-ray, a cardiogram, EKG, all these tests. So I'm laying there going through all these tests. And while I'm laying there going through all these tests, the nurse is ministering to me. And she's saying to me, yeah, God does have a particular path for you to walk. And sometimes, people make you think that you have to go through all these rigorous programs and all these things and jump through all these hoops. And that just may not necessarily be what the path God wants you to walk. She's like, sometimes it's just not that complicated, because those people go for that training because they have positions and titles that are in a church. God may have a place for you that isn't in a church. And you may have a pastoral position, but you may not have a position of pastoral position in a church. Like, you have a speaking gift, and you got a teaching gift, and you got a prophetic gift, and you operate in dreams and things, but it just may not particularly be that God has called you to the church. Somebody got to be out in the field. So, it's just like my oldest sister. She goes to church, she reads the Bible, she knows the word, but she's never had a position in the church. She still ministers to people, she still gives people words, she still prays for people, and she has never had a position in the church. So God can use you. You're not going to always be used in the church. And so, anyhow, I'm like, okay, well, I could appreciate that. I could accept that, because I just felt like, well, maybe I'm doing something wrong, because I thought I was answering the call. I've been attempting to obey God, and every time I try to get understanding and clarity on exactly how He wants me to answer this call, God, what is it that you want me to do? What should I be doing? What is my assignment? And then I get words real quick that people like, mind your business. God said that He don't need you to get in His business, and He don't need you to do this, and He don't need you to do that. And then I'm back to sitting here idle, feeling lost and confused as to, on one message I hear, answer the call, do what God's told you to do. You're acting no disobedience. And then on another end, I'm being told something totally different. And you go to church, you go to the classes, you get discipled to clear up the confusion, right? That's what it's for. So you go to the classes to clear up the confusion. You get discipled so that you could ask your questions. So if in the fact that you have questions and people aren't willing to, answer your questions, it sort of kind of leaves you in a position of, well, God, what is it that you want me to do? You told me to write a book. I've started writing that book. Told me it's things He's told me to do, and I've been trying to do them one by one. So I just wanted to say this real quick. So, logic is the study of methods of reasoning, by definition. A premise is a set of facts or assumptions that leads to a conclusion. So a premise is simply a thought, an idea that you have, a conclusion that you make. You could be right about this premise. You could be wrong about this premise, but it's simply a point of view that you have, a stance that you have, something that you feel, and as a result of this particular idea that you have, you draw a conclusion from it. Like I said the other day, I could say, I had ice cream sweet, and I like ice cream, and that in turn is logic. And so a fallacy could be, everyone likes ice cream, and that could be a fallacy because there are people that cannot eat ice cream. There are people who probably haven't had ice cream. It could be in some assumption and a conclusion, but it could be a fallacy. It could just be something that's not true. So we got logic is the study of methods of reasoning. Premise is a set of facts or assumptions that leads to a conclusion. And a fallacy is a deceptive argument where the conclusion is not well supported by the premise. So a fallacy is something that you could make a premise, you could come to a conclusion, and your conclusion could be wrong. Okay? You could have an opinion about something, and you could be wrong. You could believe something is true, and you can be wrong. Okay? Likewise, there can be something that is true, that did happen, and you don't know it's true, and so you don't believe it happened because you didn't see it, you didn't believe it, and you didn't witness it, so in your mind it didn't happen, and it may be a fact. An example. Everybody knows that Martin Luther King existed. And there's a trail of all of the things Martin Luther King accomplished. Okay? Why? Because there has been, it has been reported, it's been documented, it has been in books, it's been in newspapers, it's been in magazines, it's been all over the place. So it's easy to believe it because it's been ingrained in us so deeply. We've studied it so many of years. We celebrate it every year that very few people have a hard time believing that he was what he was, and we've accepted exactly who we were as he was, as being a person that existed, that made these accomplishments, and that's a fact, right? Okay, so there are a lot of things that happen in the world that we may know about or may not know about. And just because we don't know about them doesn't make them lies. Because just because we don't know about it doesn't make it a lie. Somebody could be telling a truth and we could not believe them, and just because we don't believe them doesn't mean that they are lying. Because it's based upon our premise, which is in fact our opinion, and people can be wrong about their beliefs, what they think happened, as opposed to what actually has happened. So I just wanted to put that out there. Once again, I wanted my son to see this because I wanted him to understand here. Once again, what is my premise? I was just simply clarifying. That's logic in a nutshell. Does it go much deeper than that? Yes, it goes into a whole lot of math, but this is just the critical thinking part of logic. People can form opinions and be wrong. Things can happen, and just because the person doesn't know it happened doesn't mean it didn't happen. So I can get further into clarify some things further, but I just want to throw that little tidbit in conjunctions with the other videos I posted. So I'm going to get off here because I don't feel like going into like a long 3-hour video right now. I just wanted to say that you all be blessed.